No, are
If
you
people
against the blacks that go black power, black
Oh,
power?
the Ku Klux Klan. If the Ku Klux Klan can do it, some black groups should too.
So you're not against the blacks and the Mexicans doing it with the red bambinos on and things like that. You're not against that.
I don't know what group is that, but it doesn't sound so bad to me.
But you're against white people promoting so-called white supremacists.
I'm against white supremacists.
But
I'm
not
not.
but not black and Mexican supremacists. How about black supremacists and Mexican supremacists when they do
I
it to
never.
white when they do it to white people, do you agree then?
I never heard of black supremacists.
Black power.
That's different than black supremacists.
What?
Yes, guys, welcome to another very interesting episode of Culture War. In this interview, Jesse is going to be taking on a Latino immigrant, an entitled Latino immigrant. We're here, they debated so many interesting topics like white supremacy, white privilege, you know, immigration laws, and so many other stuff interesting, even personal stuffs of hers. Very interesting interview as usual. Jess's interviews are always off the chain, guys. So I want you to watch the video for yourself. I'm not giving any more spoilers, so just enjoy the video. But please make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell to get more videos like this. So without further ado, as usual, let's dive in.
I have with me a very interesting guest today, Aura Vasquez. She's a community organizer and environmentalist social justice advocate. Aura, thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you so much for having me.
You call yourself an Afrolatina from Colombia. What is an Afro-Latina? You don't look like an Afro.
That is a very, 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 very good question. And it's funny that you say that because for some people I'm very Afro and I'm not actually anything else. Well, a lot of folks in Latin America, and I think almost everyone, have somewhat a linkage to the African culture and also to the African diaspora. So my father, for example, is black, is dark color in Colombia, and my mom is more of indigenous descent. So Afro-Latinos are just people that are Latinos that are maybe born and raised or born in Latin America, but that they have direct roots with their African, diaspora or their African, roots. So specifically in Colombia, I'm from an area called Cali, and that's like a huge concentration of Black people in Colombia. So that's what hints that I'm a little darker and like my color, my curls and such. So my mom definitely doesn't look like this.
Oh, amazing. So I'm a little black. I'm black and slow. So in Colombia, would your father would be considered a black man or just a dark Colombia person?
Yeah. So in Colombia, my dad will be considered also black.
Oh,
Absolutely. A lot of my cousins, for example, you could perfectly be my cousin. A lot
really?
of my are your complexion as well. So this is what's interesting with like race and ethnicity and your roots, because a lot of people in other countries have very strong roots from other places, but we were born in a whole other different country. So like, for example, when I go to New Orleans, to Louisiana, I see a lot of people like me, and in fact, they think that I'm Creole because in Latin America we have so many mixtures. And my dad calls me in Spanish negrita, which is little black, because I'm like in my immediate family. So
That's amazing. I often wonder. I mean, now that you're here in America, and not all blacks, but most blacks here are not doing very well in that they have a lot of anger. The families are all screwed up for the most part, out of wedlock birth and all those things. And blacks are like complaining and they're, mad at the white man. Does it feel weird identified as black in a country where blacks are out of control?
Well, right, and absolutely, and it feels double weird because Latinos also have their fair share of complaints and dissatisfactions with the current, system, and white people in general, white privilege.
Oh,
So, both Latinos and African Americans share the same sentiment around being discriminated against, people of color in general. But for me, it's especially interesting because I kind of fall in these two places.
yeah.
And especially here in Los Angeles, where I live, where it's one of the most diverse places of LA, it's very interesting to be, to have these roots. Also because there are not a lot of Colombians in LA. So that
Yeah.
makes it even more complex for people to like, but wait, what happens out there? Like what happens in Colombia? And who
So
are you?
do the Latinos see you as Latino?
Latinos see me as Latina, but among the like, let's say first generation Latinos, they will categorize me as Colombian. So
Oh,
that's the other kind of interesting thing that, Mexicans, a lot of Mexican Americans here, Chicanos have been generations here, 7, 8, 10, maybe even more.
right.
Some just came in. Salvadorians are also a community that is fast and growing in Los Angeles, but there's not a lot of us. So when they hear me talk, especially me talk in Spanish,
Yeah.
they immediately say, "Where are you from? You're not from. You're from somewhere else." And they always refer to the novelas and that sort of thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
but like no, they're like, oh, she's from Colombia because culturally, even though we speak Spanish and maybe we eat rice and beans and such, we're culturally a little different too.
Did you come here? I read. I'm not sure. Did you come here legally or illegally?
I came here legally with my family,
Oh,
but shortly after we became all undocumented. This is the days prior to 9/11. We came in like the early 2000s.
all right.
So we came here. We went to school. My brothers and I went to school here, to university here, and it's extremely difficult to maintain a visa living as an immigrant in the United States. I mean, they will require us to have $100,000 in the bank, and a lot of other requirements that were like definitely unreasonable for anyone, even if you are born in America.
So are you legal now or still illegal?
No, I'm very legal right now. I
Oh,
wouldn't be able to run for office if I didn't have my
right. I
paper.
was gonna say. So what was it like for you coming to America? Uh, uh, what was that like for you coming here?
Well, I came here when I was 18. My family back home is a very active family. We're very focused in the community. Hint my passion and my desire to also continue helping the community here. So leaving home was quite dramatic, and I didn't speak any English. We had some status. We were very well known in our city, and again belong to a very big community. And we came to the United States as any other immigrant, to work hard. We didn't know much people. We didn't know much people here. We didn't have a big network, and we just had to start from scratch, like a lot of people do, in the pursuit of the American, dream and a better life.
Do you love America?
Of
You
course.
love it. I've noticed that when immigrants come here to this country, they don't seem to want to assimilate. Why is that?
I think that's a very big generalization. Number one, not all immigrants are of the same age or educational background. Some immigrants come here and they are farmers, and they come here to ask for asylum. Actually, there are already ways where we bring immigrants here to work in our field. So they have a very different experience than someone like me that came to go to college, that learned English, and 20 years later run for city council in the second largest city in the country. So we can generalize that they don't want to assimilate. I mean, culturally, we're very, very, different. And again, immigrants or Latinos, well, immigrants from Africa, immigrants from Europe are very different. Immigrants from Canada are very different than Latin American immigrants that come here.
Right.
So I don't know if we can generalize that every immigrant doesn't want to assimilate. Yeah.
Would you consider yourself a socialist or a capitalist?
That's a really good question. Well, I live in a capitalist system, so even for those that this might make them crunch, I'm a capitalist, But do I believe that there are that there are socialist values and ideology that are helpful to us? Absolutely. Like the idea of that we all should have good healthcare. Absolutely. That we should have affordable ways to go to school and advance ourselves. Absolutely. So in that sense, maybe I'm a little bit of both.
So you are a socialist.
I'm a little bit of both. I live in this country. I make money just like you. I work hard. And so therefore, I live in a capitalist, society. I'm therefore, again, like I said, as much as this might be troublesome for some people to accept, yeah, I'm a capitalist, but I do believe that we need Medicare for all. I do believe that we need an educational system that prepares us for the future. And that might be viewed as socialist. Who knows?
I don't know if this is true or not, but I read that you successfully pushed for California to allow illegals to obtain driver's licenses. Is that true?
Yeah. I'm
really?
Very proud.
Why would you do that?
Well, because for a lot of us that worry about safety, like yourself, it's easier to have someone going through the system, having their information, taking the car test, entering them into the system so that if anything happens, we know. Do you imagine the millions of people that were driving out there without knowing what they were doing? I mean, we all come from different places, Europe, the Middle East, Asia, Africa, and we all have our different ways.
I know, but we're talking about illegal aliens, not the ones that come through the front door, but the ones who are breaking in through the back door.
I'm not saying that Europeans are not illegal.
Right.
I don't agree with you.
Why
there
not?
are tons of Europeans that come to this country and are undocumented today.
Like where?
So
Where is that?
I live in your city,
I'm sorry?
I know plenty. And, I encourage you to also think about...
But that wouldn't be right if they're illegal aliens. It wouldn't be right for them to get a driver's license either. If they're illegal, it doesn't matter the color. It's just we shouldn't reward criminals.
I'm glad that you're mentioning that you don't care about color, because your argument makes it very a little ambivalent that it's okay for some people and not for others.
No, anyone that break the law to come to our country as the illegal aliens are doing, they should not be rewarded.
Retail and don't have documents and nobody's talking about them. I have not heard you say the first time that Canadian undocumented folks or European undocumented folks. So watch out for the color there because it's very misleading. Now, do we need having a driver's license is a privilege, is not a right. I don't know if you know that. That's why California was able to change the rules around.
But I just want to know, are you a Christian?
I'm not a Christian.
Oh, are you an atheist?
I'm not an atheist.
What are you?
That's a good question. I think I will categorize myself more as spiritual. I was brought up in a Catholic home. So my family are culturally Catholics, but I would say that I'm maybe more spiritual than anything else.
What does it mean to be spiritual? What does that mean?
To me, that means that I believe in God. And what that to me is that I good to other people, no matter what color, what gender, what social status, what immigration status.
So let me ask, believing in God, is it right to reward criminals in such a good way as free insurance and free houses and driver's licenses and health care? Is it right to reward criminals in that manner?
Well, my understanding is under the eyes of God, we are all their children.
No, that's not
And
true.
God, and if God loves his children like he loves it, and like we should love God as we love our neighbor. So therefore, but again, like I'm a spiritual person, so I love everybody.
So
And
you
so
think God will
right.
reward criminals?
God will reward criminals, maybe that they repent. Isn't that some of the promise of
But
some of the
these illegal aliens are not repenting. They won't. If they
how
repented,
do
they
you
would
know they're not
apologize and go back home
how do you know they're not repentant? Do
Be,
you talk to them?
because they don't go back home. If they were sorry for breaking the law, they would say, "America, I apologize," and they would leave and go back. But instead, they're begging and blaming and wanting free stuff, so they're not very repentant.
Again, that's a very big stereotype and a big statement you're making, because you can't generalize everyone as the same. You know, let's not forget that a lot of the immigrants that come to this country come as refugees asking for asylum. Why? Because of the policies, the international policies that we have in other countries. We go to other countries, we exploit them in our capitalist, with our capitalist views. We leave those countries with nothing, forcing people to come here to look for a better life. Are we criminals then? Is America a criminal state and a criminal country?
But most of
Because
these people are
go
not.
and bomb other countries and take resources and terrorize other people? Does that make us also criminals?
I don't know if America's doing that, but it doesn't make sense if that's
I
happening.
mean,
But most of
they're
these
not
most of,
free.
most of these people are not coming seeking asylum because they come from El Salvador all the way down through Mexico, all the way trying to get to America. So if they were seeking asylum, you would think that they would stop in Mexico or other areas before Mexico.
If they're coming to this country looking for asylum, you have to come to this country and ask for asylum, not in Mexico. So maybe,
But why don't they live in Mexico? Why don't they stay there? Those that come from El Salvador and other places.
so, can you say it again? I didn't catch you.
Those who are traveling through from El Salvador through Mexico. Why don't they stay in Mexico if they're seeking asylum?
Because they're coming to seek asylum in America, not
Well,
in
why they
Mexico.
got to come here? We can't afford
Because
it.
we have a lot more resources. And again, look into it. I hope that you can invite maybe a professor of international relations that can tell you about the history of this country and the imperialist history of this country, and how they go to other countries and take advantage of their local resources and just use it for our capitalist society. So leaving the other country with little resources, so people come here asking for asylum. That is completely appropriate and it's not against the law.
Amazing. There is something that's called environmentalist racism. Have you ever heard that term?
Yeah.
What does that mean? That's the darndest thing I ever seen.
Environmental racism refer to the idea that in order to have a healthy environment, that a healthy environment is only for certain people, and it speaks about socioeconomics, so zip code and geography. So like, for example, if you live in Los Angeles, chances are in Beverly Hills, if you have an environmental issue, it gets taken care of faster than in other communities, like like Black communities and Latino communities. Like you can see this, like for example, with refineries. Refineries are the most toxic places, and they're oftentimes so to be placed in communities where they're low income and communities of color. So that's what.
Oh, I see what you mean. So, but in Beverly Hills, and I have friends up there, Black friends, you're right about Beverly Hills, but the people up there, they have families, they are wealthy because they work hard, they take care of their communities. But in the abnormal Black communities, Blacks are having babies out of wedlock. The men around don't take care of their own homes. They don't cut the grass or paint their own home. They won't take care of. So the standard from the people are lower. So you're not going to get the same service as you would with a community that pays.
Well, it's not just about service, and like I said, it's geography, socioeconomics, gender, race. Obviously, it's environmental racism, but it's also the idea that a lot of corporations work together with government and say, well, where do we have areas where nobody's really watching, so nobody's going to complain if we put this big gas plant in their backyard, or if we start drilling for oil in the backyard. So communities that are less educated and less involved in the civic process oftentimes are the victims
Oh,
of
I see.
environmental racism.
So why is it that Democrat?
Beverly Hills, I have plenty of Latino friends that are millionaires, that are
Right.
actually entertainment, and that's all great. But again, you can't generalize because it's just not how it is.
So why is it that because you make a good point about some of those things, why is it that the Democrats don't want the inner cities to be as beautiful and well kept as their community that they live in? Because I notice the politicians don't live in the communities that they're supposed to represent. They will live in places like Beverly Hills, but when it comes to the environment for the inner cities, they don't give a hoop about it. Why is that? You're right about that.
I think that inner cities are in every part of any community. It doesn't matter if it's represented by a Democrat or by a Republican or by a
But it's
libertarian.
mostly Democrats, though, because if you notice, California, um, um,
But Beverly Hills is also in a Democratic state.
but they
So
have money up there, though. They really take care of each other. The blacks and the Mexicans down in the
yeah,
other part
I
don't
think
care.
you nailed it in the head.
Right.
I think that what happens in low income communities and why you see that there is not a lot of beautification for low income communities, there's a lot of other factors before they can. A lot of them are renters. They don't own their homes. The second thing is that a lot of them also have to, for example, think about what kind of job can I get? I need to work first. Then it's healthcare. Then it's like there's a line of priorities before you can think about like, oh, now I'm gonna fix my home. A lot of people have inherit homes from maybe their family members. They live in fixed income. They're older, and they don't. And this also makes it hard. And now, I live in Los Angeles. I wouldn't think this is the inner city or anything like that. But there is great homeowners pride because people own their homes. And again, African Americans, Black people, Latinos don't own homes at the same rate as white people do.
If they were to do it the right way, if they were to get married, have children with a husband and wife in the home, the father worked and provided, and they treated each other and do the right thing, would they be able to own homes then? Because most of them are having babies out of wedlock. They,
I know you're saying that, but I don't look. I have like in my whole circle of friends, nobody has babies. Please send some babies in our group because we don't have any babies.
but
in our
most of
group.
them are, though. Most of the blacks are having babies out of
More than
wedlock.
that, I think you are pounding on an idea of this American dream where the male works and the woman stays with the
Yes.
children. And that's impossible to obtain right now.
Why?
Harvard.
Why is
I
that?
have a degree. I earn good money, and I don't have kids because I can't afford them. And that's the reality that we live in.
But because of
So,
your
and having
degree,
a child shouldn't be something that is because having a child should be because you want to, because it comes from out of love, because you decide that's the decision you have made, whether you're single or not. There are beautiful single parents out there doing
no.
work with their kids. Of course, we
Let
see
me
them
ask.
every
Let me
day.
ask this question. Because of your degree from Harvard and all that, and you're an educated woman, but you probably would never end up with a husband, because a man is not going to marry an educated woman because it's difficult for her to be a good wife and a mother. And when
Well,
men,
now you nailed it. That's why I'm single.
right. And men want wives. They don't want women who want to be like a man. They want a real woman. And educated women are not real women. They pretend to be men. Am I right?
Wrong.
I'm wrong?
Absolutely. Educated women are women that are educated, and that's it.
But they have
It doesn't
big
mean that we
egos.
don't have. It
They have
doesn't mean
big egos, and
values as maybe family. I have a beautiful garden. There are very accomplished women that
I know,
I
but they have big egos, and they're going to end up old and lonely because men don't want women. They'll have sex with them, but they wouldn't want to have children with them, and they won't want to marry educated women with big egos.
I think that that's a very ignorant statement, and I don't think it's correct.
Oh,
I
it's
think
true.
that,
Believe me, I talk to men every day. It's true.
well, don't send them my way because we'll definitely not go back.
Amazing. We're almost ran out of time here. Do you how many illegal aliens is enough? When will illegal alien supporters know that enough is enough? How many illegals too many for America? We need to stop it at what point?
I can't give you that figure. I think people have the right to come to this country and ask for asylum. I think people have the right to do what they want, just like what you're asking for your followers and for the people that watch your show.
Amazing. How do you feel about white people being discriminated against? They're hated for no reason. They're discriminated against. Do you like the fact that white people are being discriminated against? They're called white supremacists. They're called Nazis. They're called everything but decent people. Are you happy with the fact that white people are being discriminated against?
White people should be discriminated against, just like what I don't think African Americans or Latinos should be discriminated against. I do believe that there is white supremacy here. I do believe that white people, not everyone, but some of them, behave with white privilege. I do believe that that is affecting us all, including you.
How do you feel about black supremacists and Mexican supremacists, those Mexicans that wear the red bandinos, and the black people that go, black power, black power? Are you against that?
Again, I don't think anyone, including black people, should be discriminated against.
But no, are you against the blacks that go, black power, black power?
The Ku Klux Klan. If the Ku Klux Klan can do it, some black groups should too.
So you're not against the blacks and the Mexicans doing it with the red bambinos on and things like that. You're not against that.
I don't know what group is that, but it doesn't sound so bad to me.
But you're against white people promoting so-called white supremacists.
I'm against white supremacists,
but not black and Mexican supremacists.
What I don't support. Let's just make a distinction because you're interchanging terminology here, and it's very dangerous. I don't support people discriminating against white people. I don't support people discriminating among African Americans. I don't support people discriminated against anyone because of their ethnicity or their race. What I don't believe is right is white supremacy when it's used against other people and generating laws that affect other people in disparity.
How about black supremacists and Mexican supremacy when they do it to white? When they do it to white people, do you agree then?
I never heard of black supremacists.
Black power.
That's different than black supremacists.
What?
Yes, I told you this interview was fire, and I know it lived up to the expectation as I told you in the beginning of the video. Very interesting. These immigrants are just, I'm sick of them and that they're entitled mentality. It's crazy, guys. It's off the chain. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section, positive or negative. Let me know. I'd like to know how you react to this video. Drop that. And if you've not subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. Hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to get more videos like this. So until next time, my name is Roland. I'll see ya.